Welcome back, everybody, on a Monday morning edition of Hot Mic. Off and rolling post Super Bowl edition. So a few FCS guys out there making plays last night. We mentioned Dallas Goedert. We'll get to check it in on his hometown coming up in about an hour. It is Monday at 9:35. I know the football season is now completely done, but that doesn't mean we're devoid of any football chatter, especially on the FCS side. Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday at 9:30. He's good enough to wake up with us here this morning. Thoughts on last night? What were your takeaways? It was a familiar game plan. Defense dominates, they win a championship.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to show how much a defensive line can really take over a game.
No doubt.
And sometimes you can talk about all the X's and O's and the matchups, but if a defensive line just absolutely dominates, that completely throws what an offense wants to do. It throws them off their game. And so I don't know. It's kind of a boring game to me. Like I didn't really care who won. I don't really like to see blowouts in championship games. And so it's kind of just like all right, well, that was kind of a bummer. I like kind of hoping a little bit of some drama in a game like that, but I don't know. It's also Philadelphia. I used to like Philly back in the day when they had like Michael Vick and Deshaun Jackson, like Sean McCoy. Like I really like that team. I don't really like this Philly team a whole lot, but at the same time, it's also not super fun to watch the same team win it every year. And so, the Chiefs fatigue was kind of there as well. I was just hoping for a good game, and unfortunately, we didn't get that.
No,
but it's what it is.
It is. You're right. It is that, but we've seen it time and time again with whether it be the Bison, whether it be the Jackrabbits of. If you have a dominant defensive line, you are really hard to beat. And that's Philadelphia showed that off in spades last night. That was impressive.
Yeah, and I think we can spin this back to a FCS perspective. And one thing that I know South Dakota State did in the mid to late 2010s was they put more scholarships toward their defensive line. I mean, if you have 8 guys on scholarship on your defensive line, that's not going to get it done. If you can bump that up to, I don't know what the math is, 10, 11 guys on 12 guys on full or partial scholarships, you build more depth. And so, I think it all starts in the trenches on the defensive line, even in the NFL.
All right, the sickos can now start because we can begin the countdown to week 0 on August 23rd. I already saw a couple of games that grabbed my attention for week 0 because Incarnate Word is going to play, I believe, Nichols in a conference game to start the season. And I know K-State and Iowa State are playing a conference game, a rivalry game. That game's in Ireland also to start the year. What do we make of FCS teams playing a conference opener?
Yeah, it's interesting. And I don't know the rules off the top of my head, but I thought you kind of had to get some type of waiver to play in week 0 or have like some type of reason why you're playing week 0 or get it on national TV. And I don't know if there has been a national TV announcement for that one or not. I mean, it's a good Southland game. Both UIW and Nichols are the best teams in that conference, but I was kind of surprised to see it move to week 0. Typically, you don't see a conference game like that in week 0. Like we get UC Davis and Mercer in week 0 as well. That's a good one, 2 quarterfinalists from last year. But it'll be interesting to see what TV slot they get for UIW and Nichols, because the Southland is with ESPN, like all their games are on ESPN Plus, and so maybe they have like a late night window on ESPN2. I don't know, but I haven't seen any TV announcements for that one just yet.
Well, we also have Tarleton and Portland State. I don't know what TV window is for that one or the appetite for that either to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting somewhat because you have a Big Sky team playing Tarleton State who has a chance to be pretty good, next year. But Portland State always has good offensive talent, and so it could be an entertaining game, a pretty high scoring game. But again, with that one, I don't know, what TV window they have for that one. So, the week 0 slate isn't great. The ESPN FCS kickoff game, we've talked about that before. They should move it out of the neutral site game and move it to a home site because like Mercer actually draws, like their stadium is like ETSU's. You were there, like it's not very big, but when they fill it out, it's okay. That's a pretty good scene. Mercer can fill their stadium pretty well. And so if they move that game to Mercer, it would actually be a pretty good environment, but you're going to have Mercer, UC Davis in front of 2,000 people, and
Yeah.
it's going to be like, the atmosphere is not going to be very great.
The other game that day, which I believe ABC has picked up, will be Southern and North Carolina Central. They've done that over the last couple of years where the SWAC and the MEAC open the season. That game's at Atlanta. That typically ABC gets that game in prime time to open up. But and I'm sure there's going to be some other ones that are jockeying for position because I'm of the mindset once the NFL decides to go to 18 games, college football is going to say, okay, well, then we'll start a week earlier and make week 0 officially week 1. I don't think we're far off from that.
Yeah, and obviously, we'll remember when week 0 was
What's
just
cool?
for just
Yep.
for the FCS
Yep.
and to get a game on national TV, and then the big boys saw that they could also get games on national TV, kind of a spotlight, which obviously comes with money for some of them. And so yeah, more and more games are getting pushed to week 0, and it seems like eventually the whole slate will get pushed to week 0 as the new week 1, and then maybe that allows you more flexible scheduling where you can get a second bye week in there, or you can move things up a little bit because, as we know, the CFP went really late, and so if you bump that up
Yeah.
a week earlier, I think the FBS could benefit from that as well. From an FCS perspective, like you could add another bye week in there. You can maybe be more flexible with the playoffs, but at the same time, you're always going to run up to the Thanksgiving. And would you rather have the first round run up against Thanksgiving or the second round run up against Thanksgiving?
Oof.
Probably the first round. You don't want to go up against Christmas for semifinals, and so I think the FCS is kind of locked into what they're already doing. But if things do get pushed back to week 0, maybe that gets you a second bye week in there.
I am interested that infinitely because scheduling always gets my attention. We're a few weeks out from March 1, which is the unofficial or official deadline for schools that are going to either decide to opt in or opt out of the House settlement. I know you've been tracking this for a variety of FCS teams. Montana State are going to do it. Bison or not, Southern Illinois looks like they might be the next one that is tracking that way. What do you make of the teams that are decided to opt in? Is there anything consistent about those teams that are deciding they're going to opt in?
I don't know if there is like Montana State and Sac State plan on opting in. I'm not 100% sure on Montana. It seems like if Montana State is going to opt in,
Yeah.
that Montana will as well. But I know just listening to the Montana athletic director, he kind of had more of the mindset of let's wait and see. Let's not opt in the first year, but the second year we will probably opt in, but not the first year. Whereas Montana State plans to opt in right away. Same thing with Sacramento State, and you can kind of see like why Montana State would, Sacramento State would, whereas Idaho State and Portland State would not, just because some of the finances and some of the support and things like that. It is interesting that I think the Big Sky presidents are meeting at the end of the month, at the end of this month, to kind of figure out what they're doing
Yeah.
as a conference. But I don't know, like a conference can set a scholarship cap. Like so, even if you opt in from an FCS perspective, like you don't necessarily have a scholarship cap. You can go up to 105 football scholarships if you want, if you opt in, but a conference could still set a cap for you. And so conferences can decide to set a football cap, but I don't know if they can decide we're all in or we're
Yeah.
all out.
Right.
Like if the Big Sky says we're not going to opt in, like Montana State can say, no, we are going to opt in. Like us individually, I don't know if a conference can prevent a school from opting in. So that'll be interesting. The CAA as a whole is going to opt in. I thought that was interesting and kind of a splash announcement because they're the first non-Power 5, non-Power 4 conference to say we're all going
Yeah.
to opt in. So I thought that was interesting that they decided to opt in all as one.
What do you make of that, especially with schools that don't really fund football all that much? I know that we've hammered the CAA over the last calendar year, especially the bottom. That's why, Richmond is leaving to go to the Patriot League. Hampton, Campbell, Monmouth, although what are they going to do with football? I don't. Are they going to do that?
Yeah, and like in a way, like football, you can opt in and still in a way operate like you already
like you
have been.
have.
Like you might have to cut your roster from 110 players, 105 players, but you can still do 63 scholarships. You can still offer partial scholarships, and so I know kind of the buzzword or the buzz phrasing is revenue sharing when it comes to the house settlements, but you can opt in and revenue share $0. Like the revenue
Correct.
sharing is
Yeah.
optional. You don't have to give money to players, but it does allow you to be more flexible with your scholarships. And like I said, when you opt in, you no longer have scholarship limits, even at the FCS level, but a conference can set a scholarship limit if they want to. And I reached out to the CAA and asked, are you guys setting a football scholarship cap? And they said no. So theoretically, a school in the
Yeah.
CAA could have 85 football scholarships, 105 football scholarships. Now, just asking around, most ADs will tell you we don't have money to offer 75 football
Correct.
scholarships. Like we just don't have that extra money laying around. And I think that's why some conferences won't set a cap because they realize like no teams in our conference are going to be out there offering 80 football scholarships because the money
Yeah.
isn't there. But what you can do is right now in the FCS, you have 63 equivalent scholarships that you can spread out over 85 players. If you opt in, you can stick at 63 scholarships, but now you can spread that out over 105
Fine.
players. So you can be more flexible with your scholarship dollars, even if your scholarship dollar total amount isn't going up as a whole.
I just don't know how some teams they can't afford it at 63, let alone I don't know
Yeah.
what they can do with 105. That part just kind of strikes me sideways on that.
Yeah.
Quick email ask Sam, who's getting the highest payout for an FCS FBS game in 2025? I know you have a list going. Do you know off the top of your head?
Yeah, so that is actually Grambling going to Ohio State.
Oh.
They're getting $1 million.
Wow. Okay.
Which is pretty rare.
Yeah.
Usually you're in like the $400,000, $500,000 range. But there's a few others. Southeastern Louisiana, LSU, $750,000. Youngstown State is getting $725,000 from Michigan State.
Nice.
Montana State at Oregon, $680,000. But then there's a lot in like the $600,000 to $500,000 range. But yeah, for not only Grambling to get a game with Ohio State,
Yeah, right.
because Ohio State doesn't really play a lot of FCS
No.
teams, but not only to get them on the schedule to be like, hey, what do you think about $1 million buyout or payout, I should say? And Ohio State says yes. Like that's a pretty sweet deal for Grambling.
Yeah, Grambling's going to go lose by 80, but get paid $1 million and get on national TV. They'll take that every day of the week. I think South Dakota opens with Iowa State. They're getting a hefty payday as well, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that's $575,000.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And that could be.
Yes.
I don't
agree.
know much about Iowa State next year, but that could be a pretty close game, I would think.
Yeah, I think that one, that will get people's attention, Mark, on that. We were joking on the weekend. We're going to have all offseason to debate once we get to the television picks coming probably around May sometime. But I would look at that USD NDSU game in Fargo. That's the conference opener. If I'm ESPN, I know it's late September. That might be one that they would go and grab. I would not surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah, and it could be 1 versus 2.
Correct.
I would think preseason wise, I think it'll be NDSU number 1 easily. I think South Dakota probably has the best argument to be preseason number 2. And I don't think even if South Dakota loses to Iowa State, they shouldn't drop. And I don't see any FCS opponents they would lose to before that NDSU game. So that could be 1 versus 2 there.
Great stuff as always, my man. Appreciate it. We'll do this again next week. All right.
All right, sounds good. Thank you.
Sam Herder joins us each and every Monday. Chat some FCS chatter at 9:35. Just a heads up as well. Looks like we're going to get a chance to visit with Sam O'Jury today. So the new Bison running backs coach being hired by Tim Polasek. So look forward to that coming up tomorrow. Watch more coverage of that on our news tonight at 6 o'clock and at 10. We'll break. We'll wrap up hour 1. I haven't got into other things. The broadcast nerds were out. They did not like the score bug that Fox debuted. That much more as we roll out in a post-Super Bowl hot mic after this.